I just got out of watching Thunderbolts, and oh my god, I'm not the same person I was 2 hours ago. This movie was all I could have ever wanted it to be and more. Everyone say thank you to Ghost for making this movie as much of a classic as it already is. As someone who has seen the vision since the film was announced, I've been looking forward to this one for a while, and I'm so happy to say that it did not disappoint in the slightest. It blew away all my expectations and delivered on not just one of the best films in the MCU, but one of the best comic book movies in general. The team dynamic is so strong that you can't help but feel for them. The chemistry between the entire cast is off the charts. They have such an authentic dynamic that is earned throughout the course of the movie. And it was a lot funnier than I expected it to be, but in a really natural way that only enhanced the story being told. I could honestly just watch them interact forever and never get bored. Florence Pugh and Lewis Pullman are especially standouts in the film. Florence has fully established herself as a face of the MCU going forward. She gives such a layered performance as the heart and soul of this movie. Easily one of the best working actors today. We are so lucky to have her as our Yelena Belova. And then Lewis is just an absolute powerhouse on screen and does such a fantastic job with both the Sentry and the Void. He makes both sides of the character feel distinct while also reasonably playing the same person in a terrifying and tragic way. I would kill and die for Bob without any hesitation. This is easily the most vulnerable film in the entire MCU. It genuinely had me tearing up from how well they handled the themes of purposelessness. Yelena and Bob's stories are especially done with so much sincerity that really affected me. I just wanted to give them a big hug. As someone who also struggles with feeling very lost in life, it hits a little too close to home at points, but you can tell just how much the writers care about these characters. And I absolutely adore the way this movie was shot. Director Jake Schreier and cinematographer Andrew Jose Palermo cooked here. You can really see the practicality of it all on screen, which is always appreciated. There's a real sense of tangibility in every single scene, which grounds the movie in a way that is necessary when you're dealing with a powerful character like the Sentry. I don't have a problem with green screen as much as the rest of the world does. I think it's an incredibly effective tool when used right, but there's something special about practical effects, and I think that Thunderbolts understands that. When the world looks and feels real, the stakes are going to feel a lot more genuine in the film, as you see things being torn apart and cars being flipped, or Florence Pugh jumping off one of the tallest buildings in the world for the love of the game alone. They go the extra mile in every single way, and it shows on screen. The film itself has a very unique visual style that stands out amongst the rest of the MCU and feels right in line with the tone of the film. And good lord, they were cooking with the action scenes in this film. Every single character has a unique fighting style that makes them stand out amongst the rest, and when you put them all together in the same place, it makes the scenes feel so fun and kinetic to watch. Whether it's John Walker entering the scene like a human bulldozer, or Yelena's calculated attacks, or Ghost phasing through enemies and catching knives that go through her, it is all so exciting to watch. My eyes were glued to the screen the entire time. The vault scene is easily the highlight of the film for me. I think they do such a great job of blending all these unique fighting styles as the action bleeds over into each other in such a smooth way. And without going into spoilers, if I had one complaint, I think the movie could have used like 10 more minutes in the third act to slow down and give us more time with each character. It would have elevated an already great ending if we got to see how the Void directly affected each member. That being said, the fact that the ending of this film is still really satisfying is a testament to how well written this movie is. And there's going to be a lot of talk about what the asterisk really means, but that reveal really worked for me. Even after being spoiled on the meaning, which still boils my blood, and trust me, the person who ruined that for me has been dealt with already, the execution is done in such a surprising way that completely caught me off guard. I can't wait to see the implications this has on the wider MCU. The way the post-credit scene expands on it is so peak and one of the best in the entire MCU. Thunderbolts is exactly the kind of movie the MCU needed right now, as an emotional, character-driven story that broadens the universe in a refreshing way. There is such an inspired vision behind this film, and one that I'm going to be thinking about for a while. You can really tell that this story needed to be told, and I'm so glad that somebody did. As someone who practically built the Thunderbolts bandwagon with my bare hands, as I've been on board with this movie, the team, and everything about it since day one, I can't tell you how rewarding this is, seeing the practically unanimous praise this film has gotten, but outside of what the rest of the world thought about it, what it meant to me, and just having this superhero movie that spoke to me on an emotional level and was also just an absolute blast in the theater, I cannot recommend this movie enough. Considering the fact that you're subscribed to a niche superhero movie YouTube channel, I'm pretty sure you're all gonna go and see it, and I'm not exactly changing any minds, but please do yourself a favor and go watch it on the biggest screen you can as soon as possible. I promise you, you will not regret it. It's been a few hours since I saw the movie, and I'm already itching to go rewatch it again. Genuinely the best MCU movie in years, since Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 for me. If you really want to see where this film ranks for me amongst other MCU movies, you gotta stay until the end of the video, alright? I need to hook you somehow, especially with how long this is about to be. Alright, spoiler warning from here on out. I can only talk so much about this movie without spoiling the entire plot, so just go watch it already. By the time I finish editing this yap session, it's probably out on Disney Plus anyways. Do you think I've stalled long enough for people to click off the video yet? Alright, well, you've all been warned, so here we go. They killed Taskmaster. She was just a kid. She should have been at the club. Absolutely nobody could have seen this coming. She was in so much of the marketing. And then they killed her. Not even in like a big dramatic explosion or anything. She got shot in the head and died. I'm pretty sure we all saw this coming. Marvel even just kind of gave up hiding it in all the marketing as they stopped mentioning her. But there wasn't a single second I thought that she would go out like that. Going into this movie, I thought for sure that Bob would accidentally end up killing her in the vault, as this tease for just how powerful he could be if he unlocked his true abilities. But no, Ghost just shoots her right in the head. Which, I mean, it makes sense. When you put Taskmaster up against Ghost, there's no way that she would have a fighting chance at all. But it really seems like somebody at Marvel just did not like this version of Taskmaster and wanted her gone as soon as possible. So they threw her into this movie just so she could die on screen, which is crazy. I've never claimed to be the biggest fan of this version of Taskmaster. I think that in a bubble, her character is interesting as someone who was constantly tortured and forced to be this weapon by her own father. But as an adaptation, very poor. I was really curious going into this movie if they would try and give her the personality of comic Taskmaster at all, because I think that it could work. And I do think it's kind of cruel that in a movie all about getting second chances, the one character who dies is the one who arguably needed a second chance more than anybody else. This version of Taskmaster was obviously messy from the start, but you had a real opportunity to address those problems and fix the character instead of just brutally killing her off. And I honestly think that if handled correctly, you could have taken this version of Taskmaster from a much maligned villain to a beloved character. It's definitely not impossible, and something I might have honestly preferred to her just being killed off so unceremoniously like that. But no, they just wanted to kill her off with a bullet to the head. I'm hopeful that this at least means they're gonna bring Tony Masters into the MCU in some meaningful way. But for now, all that matters is the fact that Anatonia has been brutally shot dead. And I think the saddest thing about this whole thing is that before she died, she was kinda cooking in that fight scene. Even as someone who really enjoys the movie Black Widow, we were not seeing this kind of movement from Taskmaster in that film. The way you saw her adapting on the fly as she mimicked John Walker's shield throw, she was genuinely the highlight of that scene until Ghost showed up, and then my goat took precedent. And her death honestly had a much more meaningful role than I expected it to in the film, as we see the direct impact it has as it ripples across Yelena and kind of shatters her depression even more, that someone who fought so hard for redemption was taken out just like that. You can tell that seeing Anatonia die like that really hurt Yelena as she was defending her in that scene and trying to give her a fighting chance. But alas, no matter how cool Taskmaster's fighting style was to see, her one weakness at the end of the day is the fact that somebody wanted her dead at Marvel Studios. Hardly a surprise coming out of that movie, but I do have to respect that they genuinely caught me off guard with how they handled it. Now that we've addressed that elephant in the room, let me talk more in depth about the main theme of this movie. The entire film revolves around the idea of purposelessness and feeling lost in life. Every single member of this team is at a point in their life where they feel completely directionless, as their lives are falling apart without anything to grasp onto. Yelena isn't happy or fulfilled and has sunk into a deep depression. John Walker's family life is falling apart. Alexei is very unhappy with his limo business, with his glory days behind him. Ghost has nobody in her life. It's honestly only Bucky who has things together for once, which is crazy to think about, but even then he's clearly not satisfied in his congressman role. And I think that bringing together all these characters in one story that deals with this constant theme of purposelessness is such a powerful way to tell this story. I really love how the Void is this physical manifestation of depression and anxiety and all those insecurities we all have in life. is a really effective way to give these characters an emotional catharsis by the end of the film, as we see them literally confront their deepest, darkest, most shameful moments of their lives, and be forced to face their depression if they want to save the day. And yeah, they may be going out of their way to save all these other people along the way, but the main point of the movie is about saving yourself, and it's handled in such a delicate and respectful way. They ground these supernatural elements that we're completely unable to process in real human emotion, which does a lot to make it feel real and authentic. We're so used to these world-ending stakes that they're not going to mean anything to us at this point, because there's no way that the MCU ends in a Thunderbolts movie, although that would be an insane thing to do. So you have to come up with a creative way to draw your audience in and make them care about these characters and what's going on. So by grounding the film in this emotional story of conquering your own depression and fight through some of the darkest moments of their life, whether that be Yelena's time in the Red Room or Bob's abusive childhood, it does a lot to humanize these larger-than-life characters and make you care about them, and some very relatable ways as they struggle with real human problems. It's just amped up to 11 in this superhero setting as they get to literally beat up depression, but it's never done in this cheesy or disrespectful way, as it feels incredibly earnest and sincere in their attempts to tell the story about not letting your depression define you and fighting back against it, and how even when you feel like you're more alone than ever, trapped in this bottomless pit of despair, it's your friends who will help pull you out of it. And that is so beautiful to me. And while we're talking about those void scenes, I love how they shot them all. There's this constant sense of discomfort as these characters are trapped replaying this memory over and over again, where Yelena is damned if she does try to interfere and damned if she doesn't. No matter what happens, she's forced to relive some of the most horrific moments of her life endlessly, and every time she tries to escape, she's just put into an even worse memory. It gives you such an eerie and claustrophobic feeling as if you're trapped here, which is such a smart way to portray depression as this bleak and hopeless feeling that you can't do anything to make it stop. Looking for a light at the end of the tunnel that isn't there. I absolutely loved everything they did with the void in this movie. But here's the thing. My one big complaint about this film that I mentioned a little bit earlier is the fact that we didn't get to see what Bucky, Ghost, and Alexei saw in the void. As we enter that third act, we exclusively follow Yelena as she journeys through her own past to save Bob's future. And I understand why they didn't, because it makes for a great surprise reveal when the other characters show up. But it feels like a missed opportunity to not show us those other characters having to face their own traumas head on. If we just had that extra 10 minutes as we got to follow these characters go room by room through their own past, joining together along the way, showing that while you may start out alone, it's the friends you make along the way that can actually help you get out of these tough scenarios. And I think that it would have gone a long way to reinforce the themes of this movie, and also it would give us this window into all these different characters' histories as we can see their motivations and how they ended up the way they were. The reason why Yelena's story lands so well in the film is because we have the entire understanding of her character. And I think it would have been such an easy way to give these characters more depth as we got to see their past like this. I especially think that for Bucky, it would have been this powerful full circle moment where we can see this trauma that he was held captive by for all these years have less of an effect on him as he knows how to properly handle it. And we can see that head on as he's able to help all the others break free from themselves and pass that knowledge he knows on to someone like Ghost. That being said, Bucky joking about having a very normal life,
Are you okay? I have a great past, so I'm totally fine.
might have gotten the biggest laugh out of me the entire movie, so maybe this is all worth it. For someone like Ava, whose history we only know a little bit about, it would be really interesting to see those spy missions S.H.I.E.L.D. forced her to do, and all the terrible things in her own past. It would have elevated an already satisfying ending into all-timer status if we got to build upon that and really just slow the pace down for a little bit and breathe with these characters as they're forced into a really scary situation like that. It's genuinely the only complaint I have with this movie, because while I think the ending is good and had me tearing up like a little baby, a few more scenes would have done a lot to really drive those points home. It just goes to show how good this movie is written that those characters have such a strong bond regardless of that, as this team of rejects, outcasts, and misfits, not only lost in life, but in the MCU as a whole, as they don't really have anywhere to go right now. And I think that bringing them together in this meta storytelling is really interesting. I still remember it like it was yesterday because of how frustrating it was, but when the Thunderbolts roster was first announced with this piece of concept art, people had so many different opinions, and I get it. It's not what you were expecting a Thunderbolts roster to look like. But when that first trailer hit and it became evidently clear that the movie is going to be tackling those themes head on, I knew that they made the right choice with that team. And now after seeing the film, I have never been more confident in my life that a team in the MCU has more reason to be together than this one right here. The way that Val sent them all in to die, thinking that nobody would miss them or even notice that they were gone, is so sad, but it immediately ties them all together and gives them this sense of belonging with each other, even if Walker was coping for a very long time about it, but it immediately puts them on the same page, as they all have this common understanding of where they lie. And being heroes in spite of what people are saying about them, and prove that they can be more than their past and grow to be actual heroes, fighting to protect a world that doesn't even care for them, is peak superhero storytelling. All of them know what it's like to feel out of control and helpless, so they want to make sure that nobody else has to feel that way as they work together to become an actual team of superheroes. They've all gone through so much growth, and this movie does such a great job of showing you that rather than telling you it. I got the biggest smile on my face right now because I love stories like that. I love a found family dynamic and seeing characters grow into this relationship. And it's made only better when you take characters that are so alone like the Thunderbolts are, now having this sense of belonging amongst each other. And I'm really excited to see how that team dynamic develops over time, because Marvel has captured something special here with these 5 characters. The way they bounce off of each other so effortlessly, all while still having those petty arguments that make them special. The future is bright for them. I really hope that we get to see this team for years to come. It all comes together in the third act of this film, as they've all gone their separate ways, thinking that there's no way back for them and that they're dead if they even try to step to the void. And seeing them all coming back one by one saving civilians, as we get that beautiful shot of them all lined up, is genuinely on par with the original 6 circle shot for me. The way it builds with each new character coming back, seeing them use these gifts to help people for once, it's so beautiful, man. It's like this movie was made for me specifically. This idea is best exemplified through Yelena, as she is the main character of the movie after all, and we get to see her tackle these themes of depression and loneliness more than anyone else in the movie. Literally opening up the film with this proclamation, "There's something wrong with me." An emptiness. Just a void. Obviously some very direct foreshadowing for what we can expect in the later half of the movie, but it gives us such a good idea of what Yelena is going through and how she's been feeling after her sister died. We briefly got to see some of that in Hawkeye, as she was still in the grieving process and taking out that anger on Clint, but now that she doesn't have anywhere to express that rage, it's very quickly morphed into this deep depression that she's sunken into. Completely lost in life and hopeless, with no clear direction, just acting as a weapon for hire, because it's the only thing she's good at, even though it doesn't make her happy at all. The way they show the dark places that she's gone to is done scarily well, as they aren't afraid to talk about these heavy subjects. The entire movie is a lot more mature than I really expected it to be, but I really appreciate that they're going to these lengths to show us just how hard something like depression hits you. This story would straight up not work if you didn't fully commit to embracing these dark themes, so I'm very glad that they went all out with it and made sure to show you just how heavily this affected Yelena, to where she's passing out drunk at home, lashing out at her friends and family. You get to see these aspects of depression that often aren't shown, especially in big budget blockbusters like this. That sad, ugly side of it all that you just hate yourself more for expressing. And it really helps to show just how layered of a character Yelena is, and Florence Pugh is doing such an incredible job bringing that to life in this movie. She deserves to be in the conversation with actors like Robert Downey Jr. and Aman Vellani for the best cast characters in this universe. Nobody could play Yelena Belova even close to as good as she does. The way that she's able to balance Yelena's big heart that she has for the people she cares about, or the way that she'll take care of a guinea pig, which is so adorable, with this incredibly sad side of herself that she tries to keep bottled up and not show the world. It's very impressive to see, because I feel like with a lesser actor, that would be incredibly jarring and almost feel like you're playing 2 different characters, but Florence is able to weave such a tricky performance here in a way that just feels authentic and like a real person would, elevating the great writing on the page through her performance alone. And the fact that she's doing all this in a Russian accent blows my mind. I've never tried to be an actor. Lord knows I'd be terrible at that, but doing an accent is already hard enough. I'm gonna try and do one right now. Okay, ready? Yelena, the wheat is box. I'm not good. I don't know why I'm committing to this bit, but just doing that was hard enough. Trying to do a nuanced performance on top of that is damn near impossible, so I commend her so much for all the hard work she's done in this film. She is absolutely the heart of this movie. By far, the most emotional moment in the entire film for me is when Yelena and Alexei have this heart-to-heart on the street, I'm just getting choked up talking about it because it is so well acted and written, and it feels like such an authentic conversation between a father and his daughter, as Yelena just finally opens up about how alone she's been feeling, and how the one person in life she thought she could rely on she hasn't heard from in over a year. Just breaking down, sobbing in the middle of the street for everybody to see because she's just had enough. God, I don't even know how to put this into words. It's such a well done scene between two actors at the top of their game that make you feel these real emotions. When Alexei looks at Yelena and tells her that when he sees her and talks about how she has this light inside of her, as a little girl, he saw that she wanted to do the right thing and help people and how that was robbed from her. You can really tell that even with all the terrible things he's done, he genuinely feels for Yelena, has so much care in his heart for her, and it's very much so the thing Yelena needed to hear at that time, feeling like she's disappointing Natasha. And I especially love the way that they pay off the long-running Thunderbolts gag throughout the movie, as in this film, the name Thunderbolts comes from Yelena's childhood soccer team, and they're constantly referencing that, which, by the way, I know people are going to have a lot of different takes on it. The name Thunderbolts comes from a poem in the comics. I don't mind them basing it off of a childhood soccer team, because the way they pay that off by having Red Guardian remind Yelena that she wanted to be the goalie on that terrible soccer team because she wanted to be the one who was always there protecting everybody is so sweet and the perfect embodiment of what that character represents. And it does a lot to help her start to see that light at the end of the tunnel and realize that she could still be that person deep down. It's one of the most powerful pep talks we've ever seen in the genre, and I'm very grateful that they included it in the movie. I think that scene right there is the core of the film, and it's Alexei's words that inspire her to do the unthinkable and walk straight into the void. Honestly, there isn't that much to say about Alexei in this film. He's mostly just there to serve as comic relief, which, by the way, one of the funniest characters just of all time. David Harbour's delivery is on point, and he is surgical with his timing. He really sells this lovable oaf of a character so well that you can't help but fall in love with him despite the fact that he's done some truly horrible crimes. But that sense of joy he radiates is just infectious. Outside of him being there for comedy, his dynamic with Yelena is at the core of this movie. We get to see their relationship start out at its absolute worst point where they haven't even talked for over a year to slowly mending over the course of the film. So while he might not have the most dramatic character growth, I think he plays a very important role in this movie, and is a large reason as to why the emotional beats land so well. Every single time he spoke, I was crying either because of how hard I was laughing or the sad lines he was delivering. The only dynamic in this film that I would argue is stronger than theirs is that between Yelena and Bob, in the way that she immediately took to him because she's such a caring person and has been in that same spot he's in and can clearly see the signs of it. She's lived such a hard life and has been forced to adapt and learn how to live with that. And now seeing her take care of Bob and trying to protect him, as it gives her this innate sense of purpose, is really wholesome. And I love that their dynamic is strictly platonic, as it's just this genuine friendship they have between each other as two people who can relate from these terrible things they've had to do in their lives. We need to just give them the world. They are everything. I think it's a really nice full circle moment for Yelena, as she clearly has been struggling to find her purpose in life after Natasha died, losing a sister like that, someone her entire world revolved around, to now where she's forced to step up and become that sister that she lost, taking care of Bob in the same way Natasha took care of her. It is such a beautiful arc for her character, in that even when he becomes an unstoppable shadow monster, Yelena is the only person who doesn't even think about running away, fully embracing him, walking towards the darkness, as she's learned over the course of this movie that you can't just bottle up your depression and run away from it. Rather, you have to face it head on and give it the necessary attention that it deserves to make sure that it doesn't control you. God, the more I talk about this movie, the more I fall in love with it. It's not like these themes are breaking new ground or anything like that, but they're handled in such a respectful and mature way that I haven't seen before in the superhero genre, and it really makes me care about these characters on an emotional level that I haven't felt in years. The film wears its heart on its sleeve, and it is so much better off because of it. And I could not be happier with how this movie handles the Sentry. I think his characterization is damn near perfect. And while it isn't a one-to-one adaptation of the comics, I think enough of it is there in the way they handle his backstory, and the fact they involved his creator, Paul Jenkins, in the creative process makes me feel very confident in saying that they did his character justice. I will say that I don't love the Sentry's suit. I think that it's a little busy, but I do understand that the purpose of it is that it's supposed to be a costume designed by committee baggy, so it's supposed to be that way intentionally, which absolutely works for the themes of the film. I really love that giant belt buckle, and Lewis looks great in it, especially with the blonde hair, but they more than make up for it in the Floyd. It's 12:30 a.m. as I record this. Okay, give me a break. But they more than make up for that with the Void's flawless design, because I cannot tell you enough just how much I love the way he looked. Whoever decided to have the Void entirely shot in silhouette with only two beady eyes protruding from the darkness and sometimes even his teeth, it gives him such a scary presence and makes him feel like the unstoppable force he actually is. Because how are you supposed to beat a shadow? It's like he doesn't have this tangible manifestation they could fight at all. It is an incredibly inspired design choice. And the effect of his powers too, as he just waves his hand and civilians disappear into shadows on the pavement, is horrifying, but so cool to watch. I don't know what that says about me as a person, that I love to see people get disintegrated like that, especially when it was that little kid. Oh god, I'm going to hell. I especially love the scene where all the Thunderbolts try and fight the Sentry at once. We don't get nearly enough scenes like that in the MCU, where it's just 5 people jumping somebody. They're all giving him their absolute best, and he's just shrugging it off. Yelena can't get a hold on him. Alexi's being thrown around like a rag doll. Bucky's being disarmed like it's nothing. Walker's shield is being turned into a taco, which I love that he keeps throughout the rest of the movie. And even Ghost, the most powerful member of the team, is just casually caught out of invisibility by him. It's crazy. And it's such a great way to show just how powerful he is. Seeing him move at super speed in real time from the Thunderbolts' perspective. No wonder they all wanted to retire. I would have done the same thing too. What really makes this though is Lewis Pullman's performance, because good lord, he does such a good job of selling this turn for the character. When he comes in as Bob, he's just this cute little tag-along, clearly lost in his own mind, but he's always doing what he can to make a difference and actually help them out. So to see that innocence be corrupted over the course of the movie as Val gets in his ear and starts manipulating him, only for that manipulation to immediately backfire as he learns his own worth and that he doesn't need to take orders from anyone, it is a slow burn turn throughout the movie, but it feels completely natural because of the way Lewis is performing the character, taking him from lovable old Bob to the most terrifying figure in the universe as the Void. But the best thing is that throughout it all, he still keeps that sense of tragedy the entire time. The way his line deliveries as the Sentry are never fully confident and given with this sense of uneasiness, as he doesn't really want to hurt them, but he's just trying to do his best to fit in and finally find somewhere where somebody will actually care about him. He's lived such a hard life with nothing to look forward to, only ever wanting to find his home, a purpose, and something he's good at, and now when he's finally been handed it on a silver platter, he's basically forced to take it as he's given everything he wanted in life. But it's very clear that his best interests are never a priority for Val, as there's a heavy amount of manipulation going on, which hits even harder when it's abundantly clear that Bob is someone who deals with bipolar depression. I feel like a lot of time in adaptations, when you make a character with a mental illness the villain of your film, you run the risk of demonizing that mental illness. But what I love about Thunderbolt's take on the Sentry is that they're never trying to fix him or talk down to him. It's more so about this team coming to accept him for who he is and supporting him. They're not trying to turn him into something he's not, and they let him be himself throughout the entire movie. You really don't see enough of stuff like that in the superhero genre, and I think it's an incredibly impactful and very respectful way to handle such a serious topic and portrays a very healthy message about mental health. And as much as I do miss the fact that they couldn't gaslight everybody into thinking that the Sentry had been here since the beginning, I think it could have been fun if that was part of Val's marketing campaign at least. I do like that the status quo for the Sentry is the same as it is in the comics, where if Bob remembers who he is and uses his powers, then the Void comes back, and it creates this interesting problem for him where he might be the most powerful person in the entire MCU right now, but he's completely handcuffed by the potential risk bringing back the Void persona would be that he can't be this active hero that he wants to, that it levels the playing field and creates a very interesting conundrum that I feel like is bound to fall apart in Doomsday somehow, where he is forced to use his abilities and then they have to contain the Void all over again. I'm very glad that they found a way to bring that kind of amnesia into the character, because I think it's such an integral part of who he is in the comics. It creates such an exciting problem that I'm excited to see how they solve in future appearances for the character. Also, with how many times they say In this movie, you can clearly tell that this script was written for Steven Yeun. As much as I would be really interested to see what his take on the character would have been, I definitely think that Lewis Pullman brings a certain kind of charm to the character that we wouldn't have seen otherwise. Just please find a role for Steven in the MCU somewhere. And I was joking about this before, but they literally beat him with the overwhelming power of friendship. And honestly, I love that. I love that these people who didn't see any good within themselves can come together and raise someone else's spirits. Finding that care in other people and making the world a better place like that, the fact that Yelena is able to stop Bob from being fully consumed by his depression with just a hug, as they all join in and pull him out of that dark despair, it's a beautiful metaphor for the fact that in all of our tough battles against depression and anxiety, that we're never truly as alone as we may think we are as long as we have our friends. Thunderbolts earned this ending. I wouldn't have wanted this film to conclude any other way, because hugging someone and telling them that you care about them is exactly how you do beat depression. That being said, Daredevil and especially Spider-Man are on fraud watch now. Daredevil not being there, I get. That man is the human embodiment of depression. He would probably just make the Sentry stronger somehow. But Spider-Man? First he skips out on Fisk's blackout. Now he skips out on the Sentry's blackout? Jameson was right. That man is a fraud. Experiencing the void must have been terrifying for both of them, especially for Matt though. That must have been so disorienting. One moment he's minding his business before he suddenly wakes up hearing Foggy's voice again, only to realize that he was reliving that moment over and over again. Meanwhile, Spider-Man probably has like 50 different rooms full of so much suffering. Alright, I've waited long enough. Y'all knew this was coming. Here's the section of the video where I just gush over how much I love Ghost as a character, because oh my god, after 7 long years of waiting since Ant-Man and the Wasp ended, Ghost is finally back in the MCU, and I can't stop smiling. I'm so happy to see her back. As one of maybe like 3 Ghost fans before this movie came out, I've been here since day 1. If you would have told me back then that we'd see her in a Thunderbolts movie, I would have never believed you. So it is genuinely surreal to me that she's a leading character in a movie now. For some reason, after watching Ant-Man and the Wasp, I became fascinated with her character. I thought she was such an interesting anti-hero, and I've now had 7 years for that hyperfixation to grow, and Ghost has become one of my favorite characters in the entire MCU. I've made that very clear in all my Thunderbolts videos where I can't shut up about her, but that doesn't matter because I'm gonna spread my Ghost propaganda until I die. Alright, if Ghost has 0 fans, I've left this earth. I'm so committed to this that I even bought a t-shirt and the collectible cup at the theater, which by the way is the only Ghost merch we have because they refused to give her a Marvel Legend in a Pop Funko for some reason. Feels like an attack against me, but whatever. I didn't want to give you my money anyways. Yeah, let me talk about Ghost in the actual movie now because I loved what they did with her in this film, where we get to see her phasing in some very dynamic ways, especially during that vault scene. I love the way that she phases through the knife to catch it on the other side, or when Yelena tackles her and she phases out beneath her, so Yelena face plants on the floor, and then she just kicks her in the face. It's so satisfying to watch, and the chromatic effect she has every time she phases looks so cool, and I love her new costume. While I do hope to see her return to an all-white look eventually, I think that the overall design they're going with here is a huge upgrade. The mask especially looks so good. I love the lights on the suit. I am a very happy Ghost enthusiast coming out of this movie. They really let her shine in the film, which is so cool. It's nice to see this different side of her personality, because obviously in Ant-Man and the Wasp, part of her story was that she was very tunnel visioned on getting these quantum healing particles so she won't die. But now we get to see Ava more mellowed out in life, to where she's no longer having to fight to survive, and she has a suit that can actually contain her and give her control over these abilities for the first time ever. And not only does it make her more of a skilled combatant, but it means we get to see a completely different side of her personality where she gets to be more friendly or more snarky. And I have been waiting so long for that. I do especially love, though, that more than any other member on the Thunderbolts, there's this innate sense of good that's always been inside of her. As long as you ignore the fact that she shot Taskmaster right between the eyes. She had a good reason, okay? She's never done anything wrong in her life. But it's the little things, like her keeping her word and coming back to save the Thunderbolts 2 separate times, and then making her first save in the big final act of the film. She's finally coming into her own as a character and growing into the hero that she always could have been. But after having her life ripped away from her by S.H.I.E.L.D. and being turned into a stealth operative, she never had the chance to. And I think that it's really cool to see this growth for Ava. And I'm gonna talk about this moment from the post-credit scene now. The fact that Ghost is an official member of the Avengers is insane to me. Like, what? This one minor character I hyperfixated on from an Ant-Man movie is now a member of the Avengers? I don't know what I did to deserve this, but I am so happy with that fact. I cannot wait to see what the future holds for Ava in the MCU. Everybody better wake up and finally see just how cool of a character she is, because it feels like she put the world on notice in this movie and is going to be the star for a lot of people, and that makes me so happy. The Ghost cinematic universe is alive and thriving. My propaganda is working. And now from the highest of highs, we need to go to the lowest of lows because, man, you're really going to make me talk about Dime Store Captain America, aren't you? All right, let's just rip the Band-Aid off because I guess I have to talk about John F. Walker, my sworn enemy ever since the ending of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So what if he's an objectively well-written character with a nuanced take on morality? Am I supposed to just forgive him for what he did to my goat Sam Wilson? I will stand on business and take this grudge to my grave. He will never live down tarnishing the legacy of Captain America as long as I'm alive. And the fact that he had the audacity to say "on your left" in this movie had me ready to punch a hole through the screen. I need to calm down. It's just a silly movie. He can't hurt you. Okay, let me drop the act and talk about John Walker for real, because I think he's easily one of the most fascinating characters they've introduced post-Endgame. He's very complex and layered in a way that we haven't seen in the MCU before, and I think that Thunderbolts only expands on what came before in Falcon and the Winter Soldier in a very natural way. I really appreciate that they didn't try to redeem him. They just doubled down on the fact that he is the biggest asshole known to man. Nobody on the team likes him. He continues to be insufferable to be around at all times. And that is exactly how this character should be written. Because for all the flack I do give him, he is such a well-defined character. As someone who did everything he was told his entire life, but his own insecurities and anger issues have held him back from reaching his full potential. And upon taking the serum, it only amplified those negative qualities he had inside of him. That constant need for validation, as he's always bragging about all the things he's done in life, not realizing that it makes him come off like a total douchebag when he honestly only has good intentions. He just can't help himself and he lets his emotions get the better of him. But what makes him so different from what we saw before in Falcon and the Winter Soldier is that now we're seeing a version of Walker who has to live in a world where he's made all these mistakes and he can't change that. And I think that what is so interesting about him is that he's too proud to admit his faults. He wants to highlight all of his accomplishments without ever really addressing all of his shortcomings, as he outwardly presents as someone who has it much more together than he actually does, trying to trick the rest of the team into thinking that he's this family man when his wife took the kid and left him because he couldn't put his own insecurities aside. It gives him such a tragic backstory because he genuinely wanted to do the right thing, but all of his personal issues kept him from ever breaking through that glass ceiling. And then when he makes those mistakes, the government he swore his life to completely abandons him. And we see that arc they set up in Falcon and the Winter Soldier brought full circle as Val and the government literally try to kill him, and he's forced to confront this idea that maybe he is expendable. And while it is funny seeing him cope about that idea in the beginning, when he has to come to terms with that, it creates a very interesting dynamic for his character arc. And despite everything, he remains an asshole through and through. They don't like him, but they can relate to him, so because of that, he's their asshole. I need to stop talking about him being an asshole that the team loves before I say something I'm gonna regret. It's really impressive the way they've handled this character thus far in the MCU as someone who is incredibly complex with this wide range of emotions, as we get to see what happens when a perfect soldier becomes Captain America, embracing all those ugly faults that he has, making him a truly fascinating character to track the growth of throughout the MCU. I would love to see him and Sam come face to face again after they've both gone through so much over the last few years. On a much brighter note, while we're talking about Sam Wilson, we have to talk about his wingman, Bucky. Oh, I love that guy so much. It's honestly really cool to see just how far he's come. Tracking his growth from the beginning of the MCU to now, he's gone through so much and it still feels like we've only just scratched the surface with his character. Starting out as a sidekick, becoming a brainwashed assassin, struggling to put the pieces of his life back together, finally finding peace in Wakanda only to immediately be pulled back into a war, dying for 5 years, coming back, trying to figure out who he is when he isn't the Winter Soldier, and now discovering that he still wants to try and do good just by the book and without having to kill people as he runs for Congress and becomes a congressman, which is definitely not what I expected his character to be doing, but I think it makes a lot of sense for where he is in the universe right now. What do you think his politics are? They must have been good if he managed to get in office with them, but whatever it is, he absolutely deserves this moment of peace in his life. Despite how much he may have earned it, you can tell that his heart isn't fully in it, and he's not the best at it as he fumbles his way through an interview, and then when he's at the gala, he is completely in spy mode the entire time because that's all all he knows. Never change, Bucky. Never change. And I'm fine with his congressman arc being short-lived. It's not exactly the most exciting thing to watch with how slow the congressional process is, but I like that they at least tried to do something new with his character. And it's especially very impactful to see Bucky effectively throw away this perfect life where he doesn't have to get violent anymore just because he knows he's better suited helping people, and I think that's a really great full circle moment for his character arc. I think it's really cool to see Bucky step up into this mentor position in Thunderbolts. It feels weird to see him giving orders and leading a team, but at the same time, he's had such a natural growth to get to this point that it feels right having Bucky give motivational speeches for once and doing everything he can to guide others to redemption. I really love this turn for his character, because if anyone knows what it's like to live with this depression and guilt, it's Bucky. That man has suffered more than anyone, and now he's able to pass those lessons on to people to make sure that they avoid going down the path he went on. And also, the car chase scene where Bucky arrives on the motorcycle is one of the coolest things to ever happen in the MCU. That is infinite aura right there. The way he takes the gun, flips it around and shoots it, stopping a giant truck with just the rope like that. He's the coolest character ever. This is not up for debate. And not to jump too far ahead, even though I've been pretty all over the place in this review, but his post-credit scene look is the best look he's ever had in the entire MCU. Please never let him change this. Especially after Sebastian Stan just went bald for some reason. After seeing those luscious locks in all their glory, I can't go back to that Bob. Not you, Bob. I love you. And I really like his new suit with the red star on one arm. It honestly reminds me a lot of his current Revolution look in the comics, which is clean. Now we just need to get him a new codename and we are set. I still vote for him becoming the new Nomad. Alright, I've been dancing around this long enough. We need to talk about what the Asterisk means. This long-running mystery that I've been plagued with for years, as they just dropped this on me one day and I've been going insane trying to figure out ever since what that Asterisk means. I made a whole video on it last week, which was completely wrong, but you know, we live and we learn. And what's really cool is that as I was editing that video, I got spoiled on what the Asterisk meant, which was just great and ruined my entire year. But thankfully, I didn't know the context or how we got there. Admittedly, upon hearing that the Asterisk stood for New Avengers, which is wild to say for the first time, I was concerned. I selfishly didn't want to lose the Thunderbolts branding so soon because I think that there's so much potential with that team in the MCU, but I was blinded by my greed for more superheroes teams that I completely missed the fact that them becoming the New Avengers is so thematically resident for their story, as these misfits that nobody wanted are forcibly promoted into becoming the most popular superhero team of all time, and I think that is such an incredibly interesting direction to take these heroes. If the movie had just been called The New Avengers from the beginning, it would set these unrealistic expectations and everybody would complain about this team lineup being the New Avengers. So I think that giving us time to grow with the team before learning the name is definitely an effective way to naturally build the audience's care about this group and position them as the underdog. And obviously, the name does not fit them at all in the slightest, but I think that's the point of it all. So I think that's why it works so well. It's telling a very interesting story where these complicated characters are put into a position that none of them could have ever expected, and now we're gonna have to see them adapt to it. So all of my concerns were immediately washed away because the execution was great. I don't care that they made my video pointless. That happens pretty much every time I make a prediction video anyways. But I think that this is the best possible scenario for how this Asterisk reveal could have gone. I haven't really talked about her much in this video because I was saving it all for right now, but Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, gotta remember the duh, is basically the villain of this movie as she's manipulating everybody and trying to do whatever she can to gain political power. And Julia Louis-Dreyfus has such a screen presence to her that even when she's doing all these conniving things, I kind of love her just because of how charismatic she is. And now it's all starting to crumble around her as she's facing an impeachment trial, which was completely unexpected for me. But that impending impeachment gives her some very interesting motivation throughout the film as she's basically desperately clutching at straws to come up with this big idea that will make her unimpeachable, as her record is squeaky clean without any evidence, giving her this Sentry project to have the public adore her. And I think that having a character so crafty like Val turn the entire movie on its head as she effectively baits the Thunderbolts right into her trap and and forces them to become the new Avengers against their will is not only a genuinely shocking moment that catches you completely by surprise, but does a lot to paint Val as this desperate cockroach-like figure who will do literally anything to survive, no matter how short-sighted it is. As long as it keeps her waking up in the morning, she'll do it. The fact that they didn't want to be the Avengers is what makes this work so well for me. It puts them in this position as underdogs, as they're now a team that they didn't even want to be in the first place, working alongside people they really don't get along with, trying to present a cohesive front as the Avengers. It's a very great pitch for a superhero team, and immediately made me more interested to see what happens in Doomsday than I have been for anything that's been announced for that movie thus far. Especially considering the fact that Sam was just starting to make his own independent Avengers team at the end of Brave New World, effectively snatching the wind from beneath his wings, and creating this big debate of who will become the new Avengers. And also, Sam has a very valid point to not want them to be the new Avengers. He has fought for years, ever since Civil War, to not have a government-controlled Avengers team. So now, obviously, from his perspective, it looks like the Thunderbolts are working for Val and even being funded by the CIA, so I completely understand where he's coming from. And I get that Bucky can very easily try and explain the situation to him, but at the end of the day, from the public perspective, the Avengers are still working for a government organization, and that isn't what the Avengers should ever stand for or present as. And all he did was copyright the name, which is smart. He's trying to keep the Avengers branding away from Val so she can't tarnish its legacy. And he has a lot of experience dealing with people who tarnished legacies of things that are near and dear to him. Sorry, I'm getting worked up about this, but I've seen so much discourse around it that it's driving me insane. Just the thought of a government-sanctioned Avengers team having tensions with Sam Wilson's independent Avengers sounds fascinating to me, and I am dying to see that dynamic played out on the big screen. But I can also see the big solution here is that Bucky's team effectively becomes the West Coast Avengers, and then we get Sam running the primary Avengers team on the East Coast. I am so desperate to see the West Coast Avengers make their way into the MCU, and this is honestly a very smart way to do it that has an in-universe reason for why there are two Avengers teams. Also, before I talk about the bombshell in this post-credit scene, I just need to say, besides Red Guardian, everyone here is looking their absolute best. The way their hair is styled, the new suits, the new upgrades at Avengers Tower. I'm even vibing with the new logo. I don't think I'll ever be able to give up the nostalgia of that old classic A, but this new one is clean. It really feels like we're entering a new era of the MCU, as they're embracing this more comic book aesthetic with over-the-top designs, and that makes me beyond happy. Also, the fact that apparently this post-credit scene was shot by the Russos caught me by surprise. It seems like they're finally gonna clear the gray movie allegations, which took them long enough. You can honestly tell that the Russos directed this because of how often they talked about Sam Wilson, which warmed my heart, by the way. The amount of Brave New World references and Captain America name drops we got in this movie is something I've been wanting for so long. They're finally starting to treat him like the big name he's supposed to be in the MCU, as these other characters are referencing him and what he's up to. Please give me more of this. I will say, the 14-month time jump caught me completely by surprise here, because that is such a specific amount of time to jump into the future. We were 2 years off from finally catching up to the present day in the MCU, and now I think this puts him around the end of the summer to the fall of 2028. Maybe they just wanted to push this universe along a little more so the public could have their own perception on this new Avengers team, all while Sam is forming his own group in the background. Otherwise, I have no clue why they jumped over a year into the future. But if there's one thing I love the most from this scene, it's obviously the fact that we finally got our first Fantastic Four tease in the MCU sacred timeline. I don't know why Marvel did this legally, but as I was reading the credits, I saw Michael Giacchino's Fantastic Four theme get a shout out, which immediately kind of spoiled what was going to happen in that scene for me. But I'm not complaining, because hearing that theme for the first time in the context of a movie had me levitating in the theater. That was a religious experience. I really did not expect them to reveal the fact that the Fantastic Four are coming to this Earth this soon, but it has immediately raised the stakes and made me even more interested in Fantastic Four First Steps, which I did not know was possible, as now we know how that movie ends with them coming to this Earth, which only makes me wonder, why would they be doing that? Did Galactus destroy their planet and they're coming here for refuge? Are they here to try and stop this multiverse-ending event? Did they track down White Doctor Doom and they're here to give this warning of what's about to come? I have absolutely no clue, which is so exciting exciting to me. I cannot wait to see how they resolve this in First Steps. This is, without question, one of the best MCU post-credit scenes in years. It feels so purposeful. I think the post-credit scenes are best used when they're either paying off a joke in the movie or giving you a tease at the movie that comes up next. So this is basically just entirely that, which is right up my alley. I need more scenes like this, please and thank you, because this is exactly how it should be. Alright, I promised you I would do this up top, so let me tell you where this ranks among all MCU movies for me. A quick disclaimer, my ranking changes pretty much every single day. Every time I look at it, I end up changing things around. But for me, this is my 6th favorite film in the MCU. Right behind Avengers Infinity War, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Spider-Man No Way Home, Captain America the Winter Soldier, and Captain America Civil War sits Thunderbolts. That may just be the recency bias talking, and I'm definitely going to go rewatch it this weekend again just to confirm my thoughts. But as it stands right now, just a few hours removed from watching the film for the first time, I can confidently say this is peak MCU for me. It is absolutely in that upper echelon, and just one of the best movies they've ever made. Please just don't hurt me, okay? I know we're all gonna have very different opinions here. Just let me be safe. Looking back at this movie as it's almost 2 a.m. right now, everybody responsible should be incredibly proud of this film. It's the breath of fresh air that the MCU really needed right now. These kinds of team-up movies at the end of each phase have been desperately missing, and this fills that void-shaped hole in the MCU as we finally get to see these characters brought together and new team dynamics established as we look towards the future. It moves the universe forward in some exciting ways, all while focusing on these characters and giving you new reasons to fall in love with them all. This is easily the most human film in the entire MCU and had me tearing up from how well they handled the themes of loneliness. The team dynamic is so strong that you just can't help but feel for them all. Even John Walker. Somehow. The film is just packed with so much heart and exciting action that I was genuinely on the edge of my seat the entire time. I sat up 5 minutes into this movie and was locked in for the entire runtime. Everything comes together to create a film that is overflowing with so much creativity and passion from everybody involved, whether it be the immensely talented actors on screen, or the writers who care so much about these characters, or the cinematographer and the director doing everything they can to paint the prettiest picture of this film. It is a miracle that this movie exists at all. I would have never thought we'd see a Thunderbolts movie with this lineup in the MCU, but we are all better off for it. No matter how much I try and find the words to talk about this movie, I can't stop coming back to the idea of how this film tackles mental health, and I just feel like it's so important to have those kinds of messages in your superhero movies, and it really did mean a lot to me to see that in this movie. I may just be glazing this movie because it hit a little too close to home for me and I felt seen in a way that I haven't before in a Marvel movie, but I'm really grateful that Marvel took a chance telling this bold story with these characters. So if there are 2 big takeaways from this movie, I think that the first is that Marvel needs to do more stories like this, take more risks, take more chances, go all out and tell the stories that audiences didn't know that they wanted to. Let creatives have more control over these films. And the second big takeaway being that you're not alone. No matter how bleak and hopeless things may feel, if you're just drifting with no real purpose in life, you don't have to go through this alone. The future of the MCU is brighter than ever. I am so happy that this movie exists. Also, I guess the third biggest and maybe most important takeaway is just that if you say cucumber before you sneeze, it's gonna stop you from sneezing. Unironically, I tried that earlier this morning and it worked, so maybe Bob was onto something. And I guess if we're just gonna keep throwing in secret reasonings at this point, putting Ghost in your movie just makes him better. Please just don't make me wait 7 years to see Ghost again. I can't go through that anymore. I will burn down Marvel Studios before having to do that again. But what did you think of Thunderbolts? I would genuinely love to hear what everyone has to say and continue the conversation down below. And while you're at it, you may as well give the video a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. If you don't do it, I'm gonna force you to relive all your most traumatic moments until you do subscribe. And trust me, you do not want to remember that one time you said you too to the theater cashier.